Today's episode is brought to you by Roosters, a noble grill in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. They provide an upscale menu of southern food and dishes with international influences made from local ingredients. More info on them at the end of the episode.
Welcome to the Semmax Way, the definitive podcast for mastering finance, investment, and retirement planning. Prepare to unlock the secrets to financial success as we delve into lucrative investment strategies and provide expert guidance towards a secure retirement. With over 20 years of experience, Semmax Financial Group has been dedicated to serving investors, and through this podcast, we aim to empower you with the knowledge to maximize your savings and achieve lasting financial freedom the Semmax way. Whether you're a professional finance enthusiast, a high net worth individual, or part of a sophisticated investment group, this podcast is tailor-made for you. And now, here is your host, Matt Landon, financial advisor for Semmax Financial Group and licensed CFP.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Semmax Way. I'm Matt Landon. I am a CFP, and I'm joined by Mr. Kyle Leonard.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Matt.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be fun. So Kyle is also a CFP, and you've got your MBA.
I do have my MBA.
Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
So I got my MBA in 2019 from Liberty University, and then also did my bachelor's degree from Wingate University. I played golf actually all 4 years in college. Not good enough to turn pro, so that's why I'm talking to you.
Oh, fair enough. All right. Well, it's okay. I think there's a lot of folks out there that golf but aren't good enough to turn pro.
Yeah, it's a large
minority that make it there. But I'm kind of glad you didn't, because that means instead you fell into this financial advising world, and I'd argue you're quite good at that. You're professional at this instead.
I appreciate it.
So with that in mind, what we're going to talk about today is really about working with a financial advisor. And so there's a number of benefits that can have an impact on your retirement, and I think they extend beyond just talking about returns. I think sometimes people look at it with such a one singular view, and they just kind of say, what was my return before, what was my return after, and they might go, oh, well, maybe it's a little bit better, but is that enough to really warrant working with a financial advisor? And I think there's a lot of benefits that come into play when you're talking about working with a financial advisor. So right off the top, let's see, what's number one, what would you say a big impact of working with an advisor is?
Yes, the biggest impact, I would honestly say, working with one of us, especially a certified financial planner, is really that objective opinion. Having someone that's not emotionally tied to the accounts, that can give you a professional objective opinion about what you need to do and what steps you need to take to make sure you can achieve your goals and objectives in the most efficient and effective way possible.
I'm going to agree with that, but I'm also going to piggyback off of it just slightly, because I think in order for you to be objective, you can't have skin in the game, if you will. And I think that's where working with a fiduciary, someone who is fee-based but isn't going to get, a massive commission if I can talk you into using this mutual fund or something like that.
Yeah.
I would argue that that making sure you're working with a fee-based advisor and a fiduciary is going to go a long ways towards being objective.
Yes. Let's talk about that word fiduciary.
Please. It's one of my favorite words that I don't fully understand. No, I'm kidding. I know what it is, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So let's dive into it.
Yeah. So being a fiduciary, especially for Matt and I think all of our advisors here at Semmax, being certified financial planners, is we have to make sure that we are taking into account our clients' best interest ahead of anything else, making sure that we are doing right by them.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to the financial advice and working with a financial advisor.
I think, what's right for the client has to come first.
Absolutely.
And we're held to certain standards. It's not the same thing as HIPAA, where you can't share personal confidential information from a medical standpoint.
Yep.
Well, we're held to the similar kind of thing. You can't share personal information from a financial standpoint. So I can't meet with, let's say, your parents, and then you walk in and go, hey, how is Dad doing? What's my inheritance look like?
Yeah.
I can't share that. Right?
I wish I could get that.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know that, right?
Well, oh my gosh.
I can't tell you what. I can't even tell you if they're clients or not, right? but here's the thing. That's one aspect of making sure the clients are taken care of. It's like, I don't want my personal information blabbed about. I don't want to work with somebody who's who's just looking at me from a what kind of commissions can I get from this person. I don't want to work with somebody who is completely disinterested in my situation. So even though you say objective, I agree with that. You want to be objective from the sense of you're not financially incentivized to try and push someone one way, and I'm not just completely loosey-goosey with everything, and I don't care about anything, so we're just going to share all this information. It is something where you say, okay, I don't have an emotional tie to try and push you in the wrong direction.
Yes.
And that can also come into play with market returns,
Yes.
right?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's like that dispassionate, able to look at things and say, okay, how's the market doing? Is this an emotional reaction or not?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think risk can be a very dispassionate conversation, but also it's a very emotional conversation too. And you can't eliminate the emotions from the investment strategy. So as a fiduciary, how do you hold these two things and strike that balance?
Yep. I think the biggest thing when I'm looking at it and when I'm working with clients is figuring out what their goals are and then trying to match their objectives and their risk to those goals. If a client comes and says, hey, I really want to retire in Europe and I'm going to need $150,000 a year, but you don't have that, we might need to take a little bit more risk to get those returns to achieve that goal. On the flip side, if you're someone who's already saved up enough, maybe you don't need those returns as much, and we can look at ways to do longevity planning. We can do estate planning. So the risk really is looking at what are the goals and then matching the risk that we need to achieve those goals.
And I would even say, going one step further with that, is like understanding what your goals are and helping someone achieve them is essential, right? But I would also argue that working with someone who's able to give you the hard truths and maybe share whether that goal is realistic or not, and kind of bringing someone back down to reality, or even going the other way and saying, listen, I know you're really scared. I know you're really nervous. You are going to be fine. And you can take that trip to Europe. You know, it's like it can go both ways.
Oh, yeah, it can. I think that's the biggest thing, especially in the time that we're in right now, where there's so much volatility in the market.
Right.
It's really putting a lot of pressure on people, and it's putting a lot of pressure on our clients to make sure that they're not only staying invested, but that they're not taking it too emotionally. And so I know that's conversations I'm having on a weekly, daily basis with clients, is seeing, okay, even though we've had, some bad moments, it's not doing any harm to your portfolio. We've already stress tested it. We've already built these measures in place to protect it and to make sure that it's a good quality portfolio.
Yeah, and so that's where I think if you were going to take maybe what we've talked about over the last couple minutes and sum it up, I would say one thing would be, you could maybe lead off with saying it's, you want to call it emotional support or maybe rational decision making.
Psychologist.
Some days I feel more like a marriage counselor than I do anything else.
Oh my goodness. Or a financial psychologist. Yeah.
There you go. And I think helping with that healthy emotional regulation and understanding that your finances are a deeply emotional conversation. It's like the things that happen to you as a child, the things that happen to you in your working years, that's very formative for how you view money.
Yep.
I mean, that can't go understated. I can speak to that personally. I grew up as a pastor's kid.
Yeah.
Well, at no point in time did we not have food on the table. But there were multiple times when, what did we have? We were eating leftovers from the potluck that we had at church because we were taking all the leftovers and that's what we were eating for days. We always had food on the table, but it was tight. There were times where it was really tight.
Yep.
And even today, I can tell you till I'm blue in the face, you only need to have this much in your emergency account. You only need to have this much in your checking account. My number does not match that number. From a comfort standpoint, I'm like, I should be investing that. Yes, but I can't.
Yeah.
Why? I can't.
And it makes you sleep better at night, doesn't it?
But you know what happens? And this is where I think the emotions and the logic kind of have to come into play, is the number kept moving.
Interesting.
So when I was in college, I'm going to tell myself a little bit here.
No, go ahead.
When I was in college, I had to have $3,000 in my savings account for emergencies.
Okay.
Now, I was waiting tables. I was, busting my butt. I was living on my own. I had to have $3,000 in savings. And there were a couple times where I didn't eat because I didn't have any cash to spend on dinner, and that did not constitute an emergency.
That didn't constitute an emergency?
Didn't count.
Not that you could eat?
Nope.
Okay.
Wasn't an emergency. Emergency is like, well, what if I get a flat tire, or what if something happened? You know, it was like, that was for real emergencies.
Okay.
I was like, I work at a restaurant. I'll eat tomorrow, or I'll just skip breakfast and lunch, and I'll grab some rice and egg drop soup, because I was working at P.F. Chang's at the time.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
That was me. Didn't count as an emergency. But as you get older, that 3,000 turns into 5,000. That 5,000 turns into 10,000. And you just keep thinking, well, once I hit this number,
I'm going to be happy.
then I'll be okay. Yeah, then I'll be happier. Then I'll feel secure.
Yeah.
And what happens when you hit that number is you're like, don't feel any better. Maybe if I just had another $5,000, it doesn't fix it.
Yeah.
Right. And that was something I had to address. And now I keep a certain amount in, but I don't let it get beyond that, because my instinct would just be like a little dragon.
Just a little dragon.
You're hoarding it, and you
Yep.
go, I know that low interest bearing savings account is not where I should have this much money.
But
Right?
it's nice to have it there.
But it's nice to have it there.
Yep.
That's where even your financial advisor sometimes could use a financial advisor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, you talk about that, and I would think the same thing for myself, having 4 kids. So I didn't mention that in the about me, but I also have 4 kids, 11, 7, 5, and 1. After each kid, it's almost like we need a little bit more in savings. I probably don't, but it's nice to have.
It is something where you kind of go, well, if something happens,
Yes.
we just want to make sure
It's
there's
just-
enough.
Yep,
We just
it
want to
helps
make
you
sure
sleep
there's
better at
enough.
night.
Absolutely. Well, and you're paying for swim lessons and all kinds of stuff.
Now golf lessons.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh man,
It doesn't stop.
It just gets
Yeah.
more expensive.
More expensive and ongoing.
So I think that is also what kind of comes into, like, when we're talking about not just that emotional support and rational decision making, but there's that customized long-term strategy, right?
Yes.
Just sitting here, the two of us, you've got 4 kids. I have no kids. If the Lord says we're going to have kids, it happens. But in the meantime, we don't have kids. So your long-term goal and strategy, I would argue, is not the exact same as mine.
No, I don't
So
think.
who's
I don't,
wrong?
No, exactly. Who's wrong? I mean, my goal and strategy obviously is to save money and to be able to help my kids through college, but knowing that I got to make sure that my wife and I's retirement is paramount and is number one, but I want to be able to make sure that I'm taking care of my kids as well.
Yeah, and then that also falls in alignment with your risk tolerance and saying, so what are we trying to accomplish? Well, one, we need to have the retirement plan we want. We also need to have college funding. We also don't want to take an undue amount of risk. And I'm assuming you and your spouse are not on the exact same page. Who's more of a
No,
risk
she wants to
taker?
go on a Disney cruise once or twice a year, so
Okay.
I have to take a little bit more risk to overcompensate for that.
And did you guys have that conversation and she's okay with it?
She won.
All right, fair enough.
No, but in all honesty, it is kind of trying to figure out kind of that balance between how do we still operate and live as a family and do the things that we want to do, while also making sure that we try to achieve these goals that we've set ourselves to, and having the risk that we need in our investments to get us there.
And I think that also ties in with the holistic approach, because a financial advisor might be talking to you about having a customized long-term strategy, but they're only looking at the financial piece. I think when you take a holistic approach, there's more to it than just how is your 401k managed, how is your IRA managed, how is your Roth managed.
Oh, absolutely.
What else will you got to be taking into consideration?
Yeah, we need to be taking into consideration kind of your lifestyle. We need to be taking into consideration, what do you want your retirement to look like? Is it one of those where it's kind of, I have clients that just, in their words, we're just homebodies. We go to antique shops, and our one vacation a year is to Pigeon Forge. They don't spend a whole lot of money.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely not. They're happy. They are so happy.
Yeah.
They also don't have a mortgage.
And so that's where it's like that holistic approach is saying, okay, if your income need might be a little bit lower, we don't have a high distribution or draw here, where are we at from a tax standpoint? Could we be doing any kind of Roth conversions this year? Because you don't need to pull an undue amount out of your IRA account. So let's talk Roth conversions and how much can we do, because what's the implication going to be when you hit that RMD age? You know, it's like, just because we're taking out and having a little bit hit your income doesn't mean you have to spend it, but what do you want to do? And if you're a married couple, well, what if one spouse passes away? Now we're in a single tax bracket.
Yeah.
Or if you're wanting to leave money to the kids, but then also I think legal planning comes into play here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Especially if you want to leave money to kids, or if you don't have any kids at all, kind of where's the estate planning, and where's the estate going to go once both spouses pass?
So I want to be careful here and not present myself as an attorney, because I'm not.
And I didn't go to law school either.
But I've heard this said a lot, and this is something I think you should talk to your attorney about, but you should also be talking to your CFP and your CPA, right? So you should be talking to your financial planner, your attorney, and your tax preparation guy as well. And you want them all to work in harmony, because you might have heard someone say, oh, leave 10% of your will to charity.
Yep.
Right? Okay,
Yep.
You got your master's from Liberty. That was a great thing. Why don't you leave some money in your will to Liberty?
Yeah. It may, if we get to that point, but there has to be other ways to get it set up that's a little bit more tax efficient.
Yeah, because maybe it's Liberty, maybe it's church,
Yeah.
Maybe it's the Humane Society, something else. Well, here's one thing I would say to that. The money inside of your will, that's money that's coming from the sale of the house. That's money that's coming from, checking and savings that don't have named beneficiaries. That's just general estate,
Yep.
right? Estate exemption for 2024 is a little over $13 million
Yep.
each, right? So
Yes.
talk me through the portable kind of that aspect.
Yeah, so as a married couple, you can pass on just a little over $26 million before you even have to consider and worry about estate or gift taxes.
So what I love about that is if you are taking money out of your estate and you're leaving, let's just say your estate's $1 million. Let's just keep it really easy, really round. We are well under that $13 million for an individual or $26 million for a couple, right?
Well under it.
But that means if you're leaving $1 million and you say, I want to leave 10% to a charity, that means you're leaving $100,000 to charity.
Yep.
Now, if you left that $100,000 to your kids, what are your kids going to walk away with?
$100,000.
Now, what's the charity going to walk away with?
$100,000.
But if you leave $100,000 out of your IRA to your kids,
Yep.
they got to pay.
They're walking with about $77,000.
Yeah, because they got to pay federal, they got to pay state. So you might leave them $100,000, but net they're coming away with anywhere from $72,000 to $77,000.
Yeah.
So if you left that same $100,000 out of an IRA to a charity, let's say it's the church,
Yeah. They're walking with $100,000.
bingo.
Yep.
So that's the kind of thing where it's like, I'm not trying to tell you how to have your will set up. Talk to an attorney. I am not giving you legal advice. I'm not telling you how to have your estate set up. I'm not telling you how to have your taxes done. But a financial advisor can have that conversation, and that's why I think it's so important to have the holistic approach.
Yep.
Talk through, what do you want from an estate standpoint? What do you want these dollars to do? Because right there, think about it. You could leave $110,000 out of your IRA to the church, and your kids still walk away with more money in their pocket.
Yep. Absolutely.
How is that not a win-win?
From a legacy standpoint, I feel like you're getting everything all that you want.
Yeah. So when we talk about that holistic financial approach, that's what I'm preaching. That's what we're talking about here, is how can we have that holistic view that says not just what are we doing from an income standpoint. That's where we start.
Yep.
You got to start with income, because when you step into retirement, if you don't have paychecks, that's a concern, right?
Yeah.
If the paychecks aren't coming from work, where are they coming from?
Yeah.
But beyond that, what are we trying to accomplish? What are we really trying to get these dollars to do? And that's why your long-term plan has to be customized. That's why you want to be working with a fiduciary who has your interest in alignment. They're saying, what do you want to do? How do we best accomplish it?
Yeah.
That's why you have to be taking a holistic approach, because in my mind, if you're only looking at the investments from an investment standpoint and we're not considering what you're trying to do with these dollars, it feels like you're missing part of the equation.
Yeah. Yeah. You absolutely are missing some, at least part, if not all, the equation, because I think as financial planners and as a fiduciary, we want to make sure that we're doing right by our clients. And if we're not having these discussions, we're not doing right by our clients.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where I think when we talk tax optimization, I think that is a key component from an investment planning perspective, and from a retirement planning perspective, that entails not just, are we trying to give our money away to charity? Because not everyone wants to give their money away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But even, which account should I be more aggressive in, my IRA or my Roth?
Yeah.
Now, what difference does that have to do with taxes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, your IRA is definitely going to be pre-tax.
Correct.
Your Roth is always going to be post-tax. So if you can get one account that can always grow tax-free, you definitely want the most aggressive portion of your portfolio in that Roth IRA. So any growth is completely tax-free.
So what you're saying is if I have 2 buckets of money and one of them, every penny I make, I have to pay taxes on, and the other bucket, every penny I make is tax-free, you're saying you should be more aggressive with the tax-free money.
Absolutely.
And I agree. But I would say one aspect is because I can let it grow. I want it to grow faster because I want the tax-free to be growing faster.
Yep.
But the other perspective is if I need some of this money to live off of, well, do you guys think taxes are going up or going down?
Oh, they're definitely going up.
So should we be more conservative with the money we need to pull from today? And I'd be pulling from the taxable bucket now.
Go ahead and get that money. Start paying the taxes while you're at a lower tax rate because we know it's going higher.
So that tax-free bucket, we're not touching it for a while.
Yep.
We have a longer time frame.
Yep.
So even though you're in retirement, you still might be looking at it saying, I don't need these dollars today. I need them, just not today.
Yep.
Right? And especially if you're a married couple, married filing joint, best tax bracket.
Yeah.
What's the worst tax bracket?
Single.
What happens when one spouse passes away?
You go back down to single.
So there you go. So it's like, well, when were we going to need these dollars? Hopefully not anytime soon.
Yeah.
But at some point, right? That's just an example of the tax optimization piece that your advisor needs to be considering. I'll give you another one. Think about annuities. Now, I'm not going to beat up on annuities. I think they have their place. I think there's circumstances and there's positions where it makes sense to use it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I would even say there's cases where you want to put non-qualified or non-qualified for tax-deferred status. That's a huge mouthful. What's that? That's after-tax money. It's some tax money.
Yep.
Right? I've got a big chunk sitting in my savings account. It's not in an IRA. It's not in a 401k. I want to invest it. That's your non-qualified dollars.
Yep.
Right? Biggest advantage of an annuity. What do people keep preaching?
You don't have to pay any taxes on the gains until you take the money out of it. So you get that tax deferral there on the annuity.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that can be a huge advantage. And there's cases where I would actually advocate for that. Mm-hmm. But the biggest downside of that is you don't get a step up in cost basis if someone passes away.
No. So you lose that.
You don't pay long-term or short-term capital gains. You
lose that.
You pay at income tax rates.
Yeah, pay income tax, ordinary income.
And if income taxes are going up, so if I want some of these dollars to be more conservative, if I don't want to take too much risk on some of them, I'm more inclined to say, well, let's carve off some of that IRA, put that into the annuity, take some of those non-qualified dollars. We can be a little bit moderate with it.
Yeah.
We can be more aggressive with the Roth.
Yeah. You have 3 buckets of money, but it's not based on how you invest. It's all based on taxes.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's the biggest thing is taxes.
And I would also say, with taxes, there's a good bit of planning we can do, and then there's also an aspect of unexpected.
Yes.
Because the government can just change the rules on us at any point in time.
With very little notice.
And that's where I think that preparation for the unexpected, that's another key component that working with an advisor can be to your benefit.
Oh, 100%. I think that's the biggest thing, especially when you go through market fluctuations, kind of going back to the whole tax optimization. But back in 2022, it was a fantastic year for tax loss harvesting, but that only came about because the market was down quite a bit. So that was a lot of the preparing for the unexpected and then also taking advantage of the tax implication and the tax strategies that we could put into place for clients was huge. But when you're looking at preparing for the unexpected, I think the biggest thing is really looking at ways to have an objective approach and making sure that you're always thinking about what's the worst case scenario here. Best case is always great. Best case scenarios always work out. It's always the worst case scenarios where there's issues.
So what you're saying is worst case scenario, I'm 3 years out from retirement. I just got laid off. Now what?
Exactly. Now what? Do you have to go back to work? Do you have enough saved up? Or if I go back to work, am I going to be making enough money to still get me to where I wanted to be in retirement?
Or even the unexpected, you suffer some kind of property damage or unexpected thing where I'll give you a real life example. We had a toilet that all of a sudden it was leaking.
Oh, you told us about this. This was crazy.
As we need a $6 rubber gasket. Turns into we need a new toilet. Turns into we need a new toilet flange. Turns into before you know it, we're at over $3,000. And homeowners insurance did kick in a little bit of it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, the total bill when it was all said and done was about $3,400.
Oh,
and homeowners insurance covered $820.
Better than nothing.
It's better than nothing, but that's $2,600 I was not expecting to spend on a toilet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing where it's like, have you built unexpected things into your plan, because the reality is something will happen.
Yes.
Whether it's an unexpected toilet problem, whether it's a car accident that whether it really was your fault or not, they're coming back and they're saying it is,
Yep.
and insurance isn't covering it, or you've got a down payment or anything. Whether it's I had my next door neighbor was telling me he just came back from a trip. They went down to the Florida Keys, had an amazing time. He's driving his car down, and the GPS sent him down this back road.
Oh.
Well, he goes on this back road. He hits this massive pothole, and he blew both tires on his driver's side simultaneously.
Oh.
So not only did he not have 2 spare tires,
Because no cars have that.
right? So he's waiting on a tow truck, so he has to pay for a tow truck. They have this awful delay. By the time they're able to get back on the road, they weren't able to make it to their hotel. Their hotel charged them because they'd already reserved for it.
Oh my
They were like, "You're paying either way." They had to stay somewhere else, so they're double paying for their hotel. He had to pay for a tow truck. He had to pay for 2 new tires. Fortunately, the rims weren't destroyed, but he did have to buy 2 new tires.
That's terrible.
And so it's like, "How was your vacation?" And he starts telling me this story, and he goes, "So that was a lot more expensive than I thought our day trip was going to be."
Mm-hmm. That's
Unexpected,
life.
but that's life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest benefit, I think, honestly, along with the holistic plan, but really just kind of preparing for the unexpected of working with a financial advisor is the biggest benefit that we can provide. Making sure that not only are we thinking about, best case scenarios, but what's the worst thing that can happen to the markets, to your accounts, to your portfolios, and also your financial well-being. And then modeling it to show our clients what can happen, so they can kind of see, okay, the guys over here at Semmax, they're actually looking out for us. They're not just taking it and investing it and not looking at it. We're constantly monitoring it to make sure that we're looking out for our clients' best interest.
And I think part of that is having that long-term relationship.
Yes.
Right? It's like the more you work with somebody, the more you really get to know them, the more you really get to trust them. And that trust aspect, I think, is key. And I think trust is something that has to be earned. It has to be built up over an amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are ways to earn it. I think one of the ways is showing what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Definitely providing value, doing the things you say you're going to do. But along with that also is like having that longer term relationship and understanding, I know not just what we've talked about, but I know who you are, how you are. It's like, and they know, like your client knows you. Like when I look at you, I know what matters to you. I know what's important to you, right? And I'm speaking to you specifically, Kyle, at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, because we've had a lot of conversations about it, It's like, and I would hope when I'm sitting down with people, they know when I talk about my faith, this isn't something where I'm just paying lip service. This is something that's very important to me. This is something that's very, very, very passionate, that I care deeply about. And I strongly believe when the Lord has blessed you, you want to be a good steward of what you've been blessed with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that I think there's no substitute for just that relationship aspect. I think that's so important.
Oh, I think that is a huge part of our business, is making sure that we are looking out for our clients, but also managing the relationship aspect of it. We can look at accounts, we can look at computer screens all day, but our clients don't want us to do that. They want to make sure that we're engaging and that we're looking out for what they want, and then also knowing their situation and understanding their lives.
So the company mission that we have is ensuring our clients can focus more on their lives and less on their money. And I feel like that's borne out by understanding what your concerns are, ensuring you have a plan that's looking at things from that holistic approach, that's looking at things from a fiduciary mindset, that's considering taxes, that's considering risk, that's considering estate planning, that's considering long-term care concerns, that's considering what are your dreams and your goals and your desires.
Yep.
And then helping put that comprehensive package all together, bundling it up all together. So that way on a day-to-day basis, when you see the market goes up or down, you're not concerned because you're taking the appropriate amount of risk.
Absolutely. Now I will say you mentioned a lot of different things in there: long-term care, investment strategies, annuities. just because we look at it doesn't mean we'll recommend it to everybody. We will always look to make sure that, is it the right situation? Is it the right fit? And it may not be. And if it isn't, we won't recommend it because it's not right for a client.
Oh, I agree.
But we always will look at it to see if it fits.
Well, and that's where I know I've used this analogy before. And so I hope you'll indulge me if I used it again. But when you guys had your third baby,
yeah,
you got 3 kids. Did you all have to change vehicles, or were you
we went from a Nissan Pathfinder to a minivan.
Why a minivan?
You ever had one of those doors that open sideways? You don't have to pick anybody up. You just walk right in.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic, and it gives you more space.
So here's where I'm headed with this. You know what the number 1 selling vehicle in America is?
The Ford F-150.
That's it.
Yep.
Extended cab seats 5.
Yeah.
Why not get one of those?
Mainly because my wife would kill me if I came home with a minivan. I mean, with a Ford F-150, she would absolutely probably murder me saying, how are we going to fit 3 kids in the back of that?
So what you're telling me is even though a Ford F-150 can comfortably seat 5,
yeah,
and even though it's the number 1 selling vehicle in America, and you had a family of 5, it was the completely wrong and inappropriate vehicle for your situation.
100%.
So does that mean an F-150 is a terrible vehicle?
No, not a terrible vehicle.
Just wasn't right for you.
Yeah, would not have been a good vehicle for what we needed.
Bingo. That is my opinion on long-term care.
Mm-hmm.
That is my opinion on life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, that's my opinion on the stock market.
Yeah.
There are cases and times where you look at it and you go, this is the perfect investment vehicle for you. And there are times and cases when you look at it and you go, why would you ever put your money into something like that?
Yeah.
And I think it's situationally dependent. It's
Mm-hmm.
personality dependent. I know my wife, she told me, she's like, I will never own a minivan. She said, if we have 4 kids, you better get used to me driving around in a Suburban because I won't have a minivan.
Yeah,
right?
My wife didn't she liked the minivan. I appreciated the minivan. She did not like it as much. She loves her Suburban now, but it's the right car.
I did not know you had a Suburban.
We do. We have a Suburban.
So your wife and my wife,
yes.
Kristen, she would be like, we're friends.
Yeah.
We're on the same page
I love
here.
the minivan. That was so practical.
I have no problem with the minivan.
Yeah.
You know, my grandfather, he passed away at the age of 86 years old, and he had minivans for probably 30 years of his life.
Yeah.
The last 30 years. He loved how it was covered. You could store stuff. You could stow the seats.
Absolutely.
You could put 4 buddies, and you could all pile your golf clubs in there, and everybody could go golfing together.
Oh, it's great. It's a great car.
Big fan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't hate minivans, but again, if you're looking at it and you're going, hey, I just bought a 5th wheel.
Yeah.
Minivan's not going to tow that.
Yeah. Not to get off topic. Again, talking about the right fit, the Suburban now is the right fit because as we had a fourth child, if we go on trips, the luggage gets bigger and bigger, and now we need a bigger trunk space.
Makes sense.
And where the minivan, it was very limited a trunk space when you have all 3 rows up.
Yeah.
And so again, what fits for the situation and what do we need, and that best fits our family.
And so that's where I feel like you might think, okay, what does a minivan versus a pickup truck versus a Suburban have anything to do with my retirement planning? What are these guys talking about?
We didn't go off on a tangent, I promise.
No, we didn't. I think it applies perfectly because what that's illustrating is that what one person might love, another person might not love. And also thinking about that minivan, there was a point in time where you were like, we don't need a minivan. Mm-hmm. And then you went, this is the right vehicle for us. Mm-hmm. And then your situation changed and you said, there's nothing wrong with that minivan. I still like it, but it no longer serves that same purpose of what I was trying to accomplish before.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think that's where when we're talking about retirement planning, what gets you to retirement is not necessarily the same thing that gets you through retirement.
Yeah.
So the type of risk you're taking, the type of investing that you're doing, the way you have your funds comprised, if you're a high income earner and you're a year away from retirement, yes, let's be stuffing that money pre-tax and try and get it as low as possible. But if your taxable income is incredibly low and we know where taxes are headed, maybe we should be doing Roth conversions and raising your income this year. Wait, that's the opposite of what I've always tried to do. Well, that's because what got you here was great, but now let's capitalize on low interest rates. You know, let's look at where we stand at the moment. So what I hope you take away from this conversation that we've been having, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. I hope
Absolutely.
you've enjoyed as much as I have.
This has been great.
Yeah, and Kyle, I think we're going to have to get you behind the mic more often. You're a natural.
Oh, thank you.
With
I appreciate
very little
that.
preparation, I just said, Kyle, we're doing a podcast today. And he went, okay, let's do it. What topics have you got? And I think that actually speaks to something really, really key here is the things we've been talking about today. The reason this was such an easy conversation is because these are the things we do each and every day.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I'm hitting you and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's like this. It was just like, Kyle, what do you do for your clients? What do you do as a fiduciary? How do you take care of people as a CFP? Go.
Yep. This is exactly the stuff that we do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say two things. One, if you're hearing this kind of conversation and you've never worked with a financial advisor before, I would say it never hurts to sit down, have a conversation, and kind of shop around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it probably makes sense to talk to more than one person and understand kind of where things stand, right?
Yeah.
And then if you have a financial advisor, if you're working with somebody, again, it never hurts to get a second opinion. And if you're hearing some of the things we're talking about and you go, wait a minute, when you were talking about that estate planning piece, my guy has never talked to me about that before.
Yeah.
For me, that's a bit of a red flag.
Yeah.
We should be talking taxes. We should be talking retirement planning. We should be talking estate planning. We should be considering all aspects.
Mm-hmm.
So.
When you're working with an advisor, there's a fee that you're going to be paying. You want to make sure that you're getting value for that fee.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if your guy or your person isn't talking to you about these topics, it's probably time to start looking around for an advisor that is.
Yeah. So I hope this has been an enjoyable conversation. I trust that you've enjoyed this little journey that Kyle and I have gone down. I know it was a little bit of a rabbit trail, but if I was going to sum it up, I've been trying to kind of take a little bit of notes here. If I was going to bullet point it out, I'd say you need a customized long-term strategy. You need a holistic financial approach. You really got to have that retirement planning piece kind of knocked out and the different aspects that it comes into. You want to be prepared for the unexpected. Emotional support.
Oh, yeah.
The decision-making piece. I think you want somebody who can provide that. And the best way to get that is with a long-term relationship with somebody that you trust.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is probably taxes, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we can't avoid. I think someone said something about that a long time ago. There's only 3 things in life that are certain. It was death, taxes, and statistics.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can't get away from taxes, but how can we find a way to optimize it in our client's best interest?
Absolutely. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this talk. I hope you've enjoyed this journey. We're going to keep doing these things. I hope you get value out of them. Take some time today. Do something that energizes you. Do something that refreshes you. I hope you're not sitting there stressed and worried about your finances. If you are, pick up the phone, talk to your advisor. Heck, pick up the phone, talk to us. But the way we did this conversation is the way we try and do everything holistically and with your needs in mind. And that, I feel like, is the Semmax way.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Semmax Way. If you're not completely satisfied with your current financial advisor, give us a call for a second opinion. Please note that this podcast is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. The content shared on the Semmax Way should not be considered as investment advice. It is always recommended consult your licensed investment representative and a competent tax advisor respectively for your fiduciary needs and plans. No statement contained in the Semmax Way podcast or made by its producers, sponsors, host Matt Landon, or Semmax Financial Group is a recommendation. Semmax Financial Group and Matt Landon are not responsible or liable for investment value loss of any kind from any action taken based on information discussed in the Semmax Way podcast. Any opinions or viewpoints in this podcast are shared for information and entertainment purposes only and are not financial advice. We do encourage you to conduct further research and seek personalized advice for your specific financial circumstances. Full disclosure available at semmax.com/podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having you tune in for future episodes of the Semmax Way.
I'd like to pause a minute and just express our gratitude to our podcast sponsors, Noble's Food and Pursuits. This renowned restaurant group has been serving the community for an impressive 40 years, starting with Jim Noble's original restaurant, J. Basil Noble in High Point. Over the years, their passion for hospitality has flourished, leading them to expand into a diverse collection of 9 restaurants, a retail bakery, and a catering company. Today, we want to shine a spotlight on one of their beloved establishments, Rooster's A Noble Grill, which has been proudly open for 31 years right here in Winston-Salem. Now, Roosters is known for its commitment to offering a seasonally inspired, regionally cultivated menu featuring mouth-watering wood-fired meats, poultry, and vegetables. If you're looking for a delightful dining experience, they also host monthly wine dinners and provide live music on their inviting patio every Tuesday night. Now, make sure to pay them a visit at 380 Knollwood Street, and to secure your spot, head over to theroosterskitchen.com and make a reservation. Again, that's roosterskitchen.com.